Hello everyone. So today we shall start the new unit which is on the transform analysis of LTI systems. So in the first two units we have already seen the Fourier transform representations of discrete time signals and systems. We have also seen the Z transforms, but most of the emphasis was given only on the transforms and studying their and analyzing their properties. So here in this unit, we will go a bit more into the details of what all analysis of LTI systems we can carry out. The basic use of these analysis you would see in the later chapters or unit sections where we shall see the implementations of LTI systems and the design of such systems. So all these analysis what we will going to see in this unit will have a huge impact when we study on about the implementation and the designing of such systems. So if we talk about the characterization of an LTI system, we had seen that it can be completely characterized by its impulse response. Let's say the impulse response of a LTI system is given to us as h of n. Then for any given input x of n, we can compute the output by taking the convolution of the impulse function with that of the input. So it is expressed as summation of k from minus infinity to infinity of xk times hn minus k. Okay, so this is how we have defined the convolutions in the past in the frequency domain or in the Z transform. We have defined as by using the property of the multiplication of their individual or respective frequency response representation. So for Hn we have this Hz and for Xn we have Xz. Of course with some appropriate region of convergence, right? So dwelling a bit into the frequency response of LTI system, we have also deduced the concept of eigenvalue and eigenfunction. If we see in the for the discrete time Fourier transform, we have defined as function h of e to the power j omega as the eigenvalue, and for the input for some specific input e to the power j omega n, we have defined this as the eigenfunction and expressing the output in the DTF in the Fourier transform as y of e to the power j omega is equal to h of e to the power j omega and x of e to the power j omega, right? And when we have this x of the input signal as this exponential signal, then we have these two terms also, right? So now we will define two new terms. So first is the phase delay and second is the group delay. Okay, what do we mean by this delays, phase and group delays in the frequency response, and what all information it provides us? We shall also see one example to have a detailed discussion on these delays. So in the frequency domain, as we had seen, we have represented in the Fourier transform for the given input signal x and the impulse response of the system, right? So this is in the complex coordinates. So we can compute the magnitude response and the phase response separately. And the magnitude response is computed by y of e to the power j omega, the modulus of this, and similarly the modulus of their magnitude response. Okay, so this we call the magnitude response, or basically particularly this one, the magnitude response or the gain of the system, right? In parallel, we also define the phase response as y of e to the power j omega sorry, is equal to angle contributed by the impulse response and the plus the angle contributed by the input signal itself, and this we defined as the phase response or the phase shift in the input signal. Okay. So the phase angle of any complex number basically is not uniquely defined, since any integer multiple of 2 by can be added without affecting the complex number, and this we had seen earlier also. So in generally when you use some software platforms, say for example MATLAB or any other, or Python or LabVIEW, so when the phase is numerically computed with the use of an arc tangent subroutine, you basically obtain the principal value, and let's denote that principal value by, let's call the principal value when you compute the phase numerically using the arc tangent subroutine. So let's denote that principal value by this function. Okay, and this value would always be lying between minus pi and pi. Okay, this principal value is slightly different from the denotation we have used above. So let's see the relationship between, so this is the denotation we have used earlier for computing the phase shift h of e to the power j omega. So this is can be represented as the summation of this principal value plus 2 pi r of omega. Okay, so let's see what all these terms denotes. So in the subsequent units or the sections, we will define this, or we shall define this symbol particularly, this symbol to denote the ambiguous phase of the frequency response. And this, the function r, what we have introduced here, r of omega, first of all it would be either positive or negative integer, right? And second, it would be arbitrary, right? The integer would be arbitrary, but will add as a 2 pi of r of omega, which would be a function of omega. One thing to notice here, that this principal value would exhibit discontinuities of 2 pi radians, okay, when viewed as a function of omega, right? We shall see one example or one illustration that how they look like. Okay, let's see. So here what do you see, that for some LTI system, this is the argument in the small letters. So small letters is basically the angle, the denotation with what we have used. So you should consider argument as equivalent to, okay, let me write it clearly, that argument of the quantity is equal to the this symbol, right? So this is the actual computation of some LTI system. And if I want to compute the principal value, which is denoted by capital letters of arg, which is the argument. If you see argument in small letters, it is equivalent to this angle, and if you see this argument in capital letters, it would be the principal value. So you would see that small section, say for example this, draw it clearly. Okay, so this part, so this is how it looks like. So we take this one up to which lying between minus pi to pi, and we compute this argument. Again we take this thing and it is plotted like this. So you see that everything is wrapped around minus pi or pi and minus pi. Okay, everything is wrapped around minus pi and pi while computing the principal value. And if I sum this principal value and this r of omega, which is, you see, the arbitrary as a function of omega, but it always takes an integer value. So adding these two would give you this thing. Okay, so this principal value is computed using the argument, using the arctangent subroutine, and this is the actual phase. How is it proceeding? And if I see the relationship between the principal value and this r omega function, this would be your r omega. Okay, so you see that in this small argument or the phase shift, there are no discontinuities. It is a quite nice function of omega, right? But in this principal value, you see discontinuities at all these positions. So this is a natural behavior to see such kind of discontinuities. Okay, we shall see one example later on, that what all you can do the analysis based on this principal value and for some any input signal given, right? So this principal value we define as the unwrapped phase, wrapped phase, of course, because it is wrapped between minus pi and pi, wrapped phase, and this one we define generally by unwrapped phase. Okay, which is continuous. This would be continuous unwrapped phase, while the wrapped phase is possibly the discontinuous. Okay. Okay, so this is one illustration to see the relationship between this equation, that how for any given phase response its principal value looks like, and this 2 pi modulo looks like. Now coming on to the group delay, we define or we denote this group delay by tau of omega. It would also be a function of omega. This is the representation of phase, and this tau of omega we can also write this as the group delay of h of e to the power j omega, and it is computed as by taking the negative of derivative with respect to omega of the argument of h of e to the power j omega. Okay, so this is the small one. Okay, so it is worth noting that the derivative of small argument and capital argument will be identical, except for the presence of impulses in the derivative of capital argument, and it only occurs at the point of discontinuities, because the discontinuities, the derivative won't be possible. Other than this, it would be identical. So to understand the effect of the phase and group delay of some linear system, let's consider the ideal delay system. And this ideal delay, the impulse response of the ideal delay system is given as delta of n minus nd, where nd is the number of delayed samples and delta is the impulse function. So if I write it in the frequency domain, it would be equal to e to the power minus j omega nd, and the magnitude of this frequency response would be 1, while the phase shift of HID would be minus omega nd for mod omega less than pi, with periodicity of 2 pi in omega assumed already. Okay, so the time delay is associated with phase that is linear with frequency. Yeah. So GRD represents a convenient measure of the linearity of the phase, because here the phase is linearity. If you take the derivative of this small argument, you would see it would be a constant nd. So the group delay is in fact equal to the number of samples which is being delayed in the impulse function. Okay, so let's consider one nice illustration of the effects of the group delay and attenuation. So of course you can always compute the output response for a given frequency impulse response, and also for the input signal. But if you want to do some qualitative analysis of some complex frequency impulse response, and for some complex uh, input signal, then we shall see now how this illustration looks like. So some complex looking impulse response system, let's say it is given by this one, okay, where the outer part we have defined as h1 of z. So in this h1 of z you have two poles and two zeros, and the one which is inside, which is s2 of z, so it is the multiplications from k1 to 4. Okay, so it would have many poles and many zeros. So let's see. So for some given values of ck in the h2 of z, so let's talk about first of all h1z. Since it is a multiplication of the numerator polynomials and the denominator polynomials, so the poles and zeros you can compute straightforwardly, right? But still, let's see what, first of all we shall see that why we have denoted this complete transfer function h of z in h1 of z and h2 of z, and what is all contributed by these two transfer functions. Okay, so this h1 of z, like I said, it has two poles and two zeros, and these are complex conjugate poles and zeros. So by h1 of z, here are the two poles and two zeros. Okay, now the rest of the h2 of z is denoted by this, where you have multiple poles and zeros. So this number 2, the number 2 what you are seeing here, is basically you have two zeros located at this position. Similarly, two zeros here, two zeros here, and two zeros here, and this cross is two poles. So here in total you have 8 zeros and 8 poles. Okay, and of course they appear as a complex conjugate as a representation of the transfer function. So this way you have here as well. Okay, so this is how the pole zero plot of this transfer function looks like. Okay, so one important thing you would notice here, that if I for some value of coefficient ck, this h2 of z represents an all pass system. All pass system, meaning to say that the magnitude response of h2 of e to the power j omega would always be equal to 1 for all values of omega. So we shall see also the magnitude response and the phase response of this overall transfer function h of z. But it is clear from here that since h2 of z is an all-pass system, it won't contribute anything into the magnitude response of the overall transfer function h of z, because mod h2 is equal to 1 for all omega. But it is not the case with h1. The magnitude response is not 1, so it will contribute, and we shall see how. Okay. So plotting the principal value of the phase response, this is how it is obtained. While this, which is in the small argument, it is continuous. Okay, so here in the principal value phase response, or the capital argument phase response, you see multiple discontinuities here. These are all other discontinuities, but these discontinuities are not present in the unwrapped response. And these discontinuities are occurred due to the modular 2 pi computation of the phase. Right? Likewise, we saw in the previous illustration. And here there are no jumps. This is how the principal value and the phase response looks like. Now let's compare. So in this next two figures, A and B, we have plotted the group delay of h of z and magnitude and frequency response of h of z. Right? So observe that since the unwrapped phase is monotonically decreasing, it is always decreasing and monotonically decreasing except at around 0.8 pi and minus 0.8 pi. So if I zoom this thing, so you see it is not monotonically decreasing here. Similarly, the same behavior occur at the positive 0.8. Otherwise, at all frequencies, it is monotonically decreasing. Okay. So this behavior is also captured in the group delay. So the group delay is positive everywhere except in that region, minus 0.8 and 0.8. Otherwise, you see the group delay is always positive. So if you recall the formula of the group delay, it is computed by negative minus of the d by dw of this function. So if it is monotonically decreasing, the group delay would always be a positive. If it is increasing, then it would be have a negative value, and this is what phenomena we are seeing here, right? Also notice that the group delay has a large positive peak in the bands of frequencies around this one, which is something like 0.17 pi and let's write it something like 0.17 pi, and here something like 0.23 pi. Okay, because here you have the large decreasing of the continuous function, and similarly here, that's why you have the large positive peaks here, because it has the negative slope. Also note that the negative dip around plus minus 0.8 pi, where the phase has positive slope. Right, this is about the group delay of the function h of z. Now talking about the magnitude response, so as said above that h2, since h2 of z represents an all pass filter, the magnitude response, whatever you are seeing here, is entirely controlled by the poles and zeros of h1 of z. Okay, so and we had seen that from the pole zero plot that at this location you would have the magnitude response reaching to zeros, and at these positions, okay, you would see a large magnitude, and this is what is happening here. So since the frequency response is evaluated for z of z equal to e to the power j omega, the zeros at 0.98 in the overall transfer function cause the overall frequency response to be very small around this band, right? And here you would see the large dip in the magnitude response. Okay, so this was about some analysis in terms of the group delays, the principal values, its impact on the magnitude response, and how qualitatively the group delay captures the information of the wrapped or the unwrapped frequency response. Now let's suppose I give this complex signals, a complex looking signal, where the overall signal xn is the input signal is the summation of three components x1, x2 and x3, and this x1 and x2, x3 are defined in terms of this, where x1 of n is equal to w of n cos 0.2 pi n. Similarly, the shifted by minus pi by 2 and at a bit higher frequency rate. Similarly, the frequency of the third component of the signal is high, shifted by plus pi by pi, where your Wn is given by this, with m is equal to 60. Okay, so the complete input sequence can be defined by this. The reason why we are using this signal, so that we can see the effect of different frequency components in the signal with respect to the frequency response of the signal. Notice that these are some couple of frequencies in the group delay, because here in the plus minus 0.2 pi we have the large values in the group delay, and the plus minus 0.8 pi we have the negative values, and at 0 plus minus 0.4 we have there is no significant visualization in the group delay, but in the magnitude response we see some nice feature at these particular frequencies. So that's why this input signal is constructed in such a way so that we can analyze at what happens at different frequencies, okay, without even computing. Of course, given this input signal and the frequency response, you can always compute the output response. Okay, so let's move ahead. So one of the nice feature of this signal is if we plot this figure, so this figure looks like this. All the three components with which this signal is formed can be clearly seen. So the highest frequency pulse, let's label them. So the highest frequency pulse comes first, and this is at 0.8 pi. This is at 0.4 pi, and this is at 0.2 pi. This basically part. Okay, so the highest frequency pulse comes first, then the lowest, followed by the mid frequency pulse. So this signal is quite nicely captured. So this is the waveform of the signal x of n. So the three sinusoidal frequencies are omega 1, like I mentioned, 0.2 pi, 0.4 pi and 0.8 pi, depending on how the signal is being constructed. So now if we see by taking the Fourier transform of this signal magnitude, we see that significant energy centered and concentrated around each of the three frequencies, plus minus 0.2 pi, plus minus 0.4 pi, and plus minus 0.8 pi. Okay? This is the magnitude of the discrete time Fourier transform of the above signal. Okay. So now we shall see that when we use this as an input to the system with the above system function h of z, each of the frequency packets or groups, you would see, because these are arranged in some groups or some packets, right, associated with each of the narrowband pulses will be affected by the filter response magnitude and group delay over the frequency band of that group. Okay, so now come back to the filter frequency response magnitude first of all. So we see that the frequency group centered and concentrated around omega 1, let's say 0.2 pi, so which is somewhere at this value. So the frequency group signal will experience a slight amplitude gain, right, and the one around 0.4 and plus minus 0.4, they will experience a gain of about 2. Now, since the magnitude of the frequency response is very small around the frequency plus minus 0.8 pi, the highest frequency pulse will be significantly attenuated. Okay. So, if we try to capture this behavior in the output signal, so what we noticed that since the magnitude response of the system is almost close to 0 at this frequency range, so it would be highly attenuated. At 0.4 pi it would remain, it would experience a gain of about 2, and at 0.2 it would remain almost the same with a slight amplitude gain because it is more than having a value 1. Okay, now talking about the system group delay. Yeah, this was about the magnitude response. Now talking about the group delay, let's go to the figure this again. So here you will notice that the group delay around the frequency 0 plus minus 0.2 pi is significantly larger than for either 0 plus minus 0.4 pi or plus minus 0.8 pi, and consequently the lowest frequency pulse will experience the most delay through the system. So now if I try to capture this analysis in the output response, that this narrowband pulse would go away, would be highly attenuated. This bunch of signal would be highly delayed in comparison to this one, and the magnitude of this one would increase, but the magnitude of this one would be slightly increased, while the magnitude of this one would be increased by 2. Okay, so let's see that this is how the output looks like. So the what I was saying, that this bunch of signal is at 0.2 pi and this bunch of waveform is at 0.4 pi. This is the analysis. The pulse at frequency 0.2 pi has been essentially eliminated, which is consistent with the low values of frequency response magnitude around that frequency, while the other two pulses have increased in amplitude. So this one is increased by almost 2, you see the magnitude 2, while this one is slightly greater than 1. Okay, so this output response is completely consistent with the magnitude response and group delay at those frequencies. Right? So this is some qualitative analysis for seeing the effects of the phase and the effects of group delay and attenuation, right, for some given system function of system function. Okay, so we shall stop today and we'll continue the next time. Okay, thank you.